So it's been a minute. Hey there, my name is Grace Wells. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, I am a commercial videographer. I make high quality commercial videos for big brands like L'Oreal and Maybelline and Celsius. I have managed in the last 5 years to build the videography business that my former self could not have dreamed of in her wildest imagination. I designed a program. It's called Product Film School for those who have not heard me talk about it before, though I talk about it a lot. It's a 12-week course that I teach a couple of times a year, and I basically coach my students through how to create product videography content and then how to monetize on that content. I was scrolling through my YouTube analytics recently, and I noticed that there's this one video that outperforms every video I've ever posted every single month. And to my surprise, it was not a behind the scenes video, because that's what I'm known for typically, is my behind the scenes content. This was an easy at-home studio setup video that I made a couple of years ago when I was still working in my college dorm, and I had this very affordable, very nimble setup. And it makes me really happy that that video has performed so well, because I think it really speaks to what I talk about all the time, this idea that you do not need a lot of really fancy, expensive equipment or a big studio or a crew to make this very profitable content. You can literally do it at home with a couple of lights and a tripod. So because you love that specific video so much, and also to celebrate the fact that Product Film School is opening for enrollment again next month in September, I have decided to do something I've never ever done before, and I'm actually going to release one of the lessons from the Product Film School curriculum itself here on YouTube in this video. The lesson is called Studio Staples. It's in week 2 of the course, which is the gear and lighting section, and it focuses on all of those very affordable, seemingly insignificant, but actually incredibly important items that I use on my set every single day to achieve very high quality commercial videos for multi-billion-dollar clients. On top of releasing this lesson, I have also spent the past couple of weeks building a budget filming hacks PDF guide for you. These are my top 5 favorite budget filming hacks. So there's a couple of things from this lesson, but also a couple of other really awesome things that I wanted to share with you about how I create these high quality shots in a very DIY way. The link to download that is in the description. It is completely 100% free. Here is Product Film School Lesson 17, Studio Staples. I hope you enjoy it. And if you want to join Product Film School and get the full range of lessons, there's 110 lessons in there or thereabout. Please do sign up for the fall session. I'd love to work with you. Enrollment starts September 12th. In this lesson, we're going to talk about my studio staples. So these are the inexpensive items and materials that I use in my studio all the time while I make commercial videos. And many of these are just everyday average items that you would find anywhere, but they can be repurposed to make amazing video content. The first and probably the most obvious studio staple when you're making tabletop commercials is the tabletop itself. And specifically, you're going to need a really sturdy and very stable tabletop, because the last thing you want while you're filming commercials, particularly if you're working on something like a stop motion sequence or another type of sequence where you have to lock your set down, you don't want that table to move or to shake as you're putting props on or moving your surfaces or cleaning your surfaces. You want everything to be nice and stable and steady. Now, when it comes to finding the right tabletop to film on, there are a couple of other important things to look for apart from just that table being sturdy. The other thing is the table's height. So when I first started filming commercial videos, I was actually filming my commercial videos on a Kallax IKEA bookshelf, which was only 30 inches high. And my tripod that I was using at that time actually could not even adjust low enough to properly film on that tabletop. And so I found myself having to literally stack boxes on top of my tabletop to get the level of my surface high enough that the camera could properly film on it. That setup worked well enough for me for around 6 months while I was still in college, but eventually I graduated, I moved, and me and my dad worked together to build this table, which is the table I currently use. It is 38 inches in height, so it's considerably taller than the first Kallax bookshelf. And because it's 38 inches or a little bit over 3 feet, this table is high enough now for me to film all of my tabletop commercials on. I can get my tripod low enough to film on this tabletop with a straight on angle. Another thing that's great about this table is how narrow it is. This tabletop is 18 inches in width, and the reason why a narrow tabletop is so important is because when you put your surface on top of the table, you you wanna make sure that the top of this table is not then visibly present underneath the surface that you place on top of it. And so if this tabletop is too wide, it's going to peek out from underneath your surface. Because this tabletop that I use is only 18 inches in width and the surfaces I use are 3 feet in width, that means I'm never going to see the top of my table peeking out or poking out from underneath my surface. Now, this table was relatively simple to construct in the sense that it's purpose built and it doesn't have to be pretty. So we basically just got a bunch of sheets of plywood from Home Depot and we screwed them all together. However, if that's out of your comfort zone and you're not going to go and build your own custom table, very understandable. If you are looking for a table, sourcing a table online or in stores, just make sure it's sturdy, make sure it's tall, and make sure it's narrow. And a couple of good things to look for if you can't find a table under that description would be to search for a bookshelf or even a bar. Those are the kinds of pieces of furniture that tend to be narrower and taller as opposed to tables which might be more of a uniform shape and shorter. Another thing to look out for might be a tall desk or standing desk, because desks are again one of those pieces of furniture that tend to have these rectangular tops with narrower widths as opposed to, for example, a kitchen table which could be square or circular. Once you have your sturdy, tall, narrow table that you're going to use to film your commercial videos, the next studio staple that I really recommend purchasing is a simple manual turntable like this. I bought this on Amazon for $8 and I think I use it in literally every single video I make. It's a very simple plastic turntable. It just spins like this. And basically what I'll do is I'll put this turntable underneath my surface. I'll center the surface on the turntable, and that allows me to spin the surface either clockwise or counterclockwise, and to do so hands-free. Spinning your surface and your product like this can contribute a significant amount to the production value of your video, because you're essentially just adding another level of dynamic movement into your footage, and that's only going to help to enhance the video overall. Something that's really important to keep in mind though, if you are planning on using a turntable like this one, is to make sure whatever you're placing on top of it is perfectly centered on the turntable so that it can spin on its own axis. Otherwise, those objects like the product you place on top of your surface are going to spin in a circular formation like this, and it's not going to look how you envision it. The easiest way you can do this is to first place your surface on your turntable, just eyeballing the center but trying to get it as centered as possible. Then take a pencil and lightly place it down on the center of that surface and spin the surface. The pencil will draw a circle which indicates the center of the turntable, and that's where you place your product. Now, when you spin the surface, the product will spin on its own axis. There are a couple of significant limitations with this type of turntable. The first is that it does not spin very fast for very long. You could spin this as fast as you possibly can, and it will stop after a couple of rotations. It will very quickly slow down. So if you want to have a more perpetual, constant spinning motion, you're really not going to be able to get that with this turntable. The second issue is that it is quite large, meaning that the only place you really can use it is underneath your surface with the product on top. And so if you have a situation where you don't want the surface to spin, you just want the product to spin, this turntable is not going to help you because you're going to see the edges of the turntable underneath the product. So with those limitations in mind, that's gonna bring us to our second studio staple, which is essentially the mini turntable, AKA the fidget spinner. As you can see, when I spin this has a very fast, very constant, and quite perpetual motion that goes for a very long time. It's super different to the movement of the turntable, which stops after a couple of rotations. So if I want to have a more constant spinning that does not slow down over time, this fidget spinner is going to serve me a lot better than the turntable. The second thing that's so great about a fidget spinner is that it's so small, much smaller than the turntable. And so depending on the size of my product, I can place a product on top of the fidget spinner and I can spin the product without spinning the surface underneath it. All you'll have to do to transform a fidget spinner into a miniature turntable is to pop off one of the plastic caps on either side of the fidget spinner and then use a very strong tape like alien tape to attach that fidget spinner to your tabletop or your surface. Speaking of alien tape is actually my next studio staple. This is alien tape. It's a very strong, very sticky, thick, double-sided tape. And again, I think I use this for every single video I make. It is so handy to have on set. The main way that I use it is to tape props down onto my surface, because usually as I'm filming or I'm performing actions on my set, it's very important that my props don't shift or fall over. And so I just make sure everything is secure by taping it down. Makes my life a whole lot easier. In a similar vein, the next studio staple is a hot glue gun. And I don't use hot glue to fix props down onto my surface just because it's not as removable as the tape, but the hot glue is really more for special effects and rigging special effects. So a good example of this was in my Gain commercial. I did this special effect rig where I attached a camera shutter release to my Gain Power Blast bottle, to the sprayer of the bottle, and I attached that camera shutter release to the sprayer of the bottle using hot glue. So very versatile, comes in handy all the time, especially for practical effects. My next little category of studio staples are things that I use to clean my surface and my props. So we have paper towel, Windex, and a microfiber cleaning cloth. The paper towel is great for just simple cleanup, wiping down a surface, wiping down the tabletop if there's a spill or something like that. But the microfiber cleaning cloth is particularly great for cleaning props, because when you're cleaning props, you don't want to leave dust behind, and the microfiber cleaning cloth won't do that. The paper towel might. So it's good to have one of these for removing dust from your set, cleaning your props, removing fingerprints, anything like that. The next thing that I like to have in my studio is white tack. This is that stuff that you would use to hang posters on your wall without damaging them. It's that white tacky substance. And though it is sticky, I don't use it in the same way as the alien tape or the hot glue. I actually use this because it's buildable, meaning that you can layer it up and it has a lot of volume. And so my main purpose for this on set is when one of my props for some reason is slightly off kilter or it's leaning one way, maybe it just isn't perfectly straight. I take a little bit of white tack, I place it underneath an edge, and I just kind of build that white tack up until the prop is level and even. And then my very last studio staple, and one that if you follow me on social media, you may have seen quite a few times before, are wooden skewers. I use these for practical effects, for special effects, and these work so well for so many reasons. When I use these, I'm typically attaching them to other objects. And so because the top is pointed, they are sharp enough to pierce objects which are softer. If that object is not soft, if it's a hard object, if it's made out of plastic or metal or something like that, these bond really well with hot glue, so I could instead hot glue this end of the skewer to the object. The other thing that makes these work very well for practical effects is that they're super thin, meaning they're easy to edit out, and they also support the weight of a lot of objects because they're rigid. If I were, for example, to use string or fishing line, those items are also very thin and can be easily edited, but the problem is that I really only have the option of hanging objects from the top. With the wooden skewers, I can hang objects from the top. I could also support objects from the bottom. So these are my studio staples. We have a strong, sturdy tabletop, a manual turntable, fidget spinner, alien tape, hot glue, paper towels, Windex, and a microfiber cleaning cloth, white tack, and wooden skewers. And these are all very inexpensive items that you can find pretty much anywhere. They're very accessible, and yet all of them serve a great purpose in bringing production value to your commercial videos and to making your set run a lot more smoothly. I hope you enjoyed the studio staples lesson. If you did, go download the Budget Filming Hacks PDF guide that I made. It's completely free. The link is in the description, and it has even more budget filming hacks that I love to use on my sets to create these really high quality commercial videos for my clients. If you'd like to be a part of Product Film School, the next session will open for enrollment on September 12th. I would love to work with you. There's over 100 pre-recorded video lessons, 12 weeks of content, live group coaching calls where I'll talk you through the individual parts of your videos and your business and work with you in a more personalized way. And there's also an exclusive online community where you can chat with your fellow students and really get to know each other and build each other up as you build your own businesses. And lastly, feel free to subscribe to this channel. Admittedly, I'm not here as often as I'd like to be because I'm working with my clients, I'm working with my students. There's a lot going on in my life and in my business. But if you want to know next time I post a YouTube video, feel free to hit subscribe so you'll be notified. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you sticking around till the end, and have a fantastic day. Bye guys.